"You can choose any woman you want, human," she said. When I answered, "I want you." The Hall of Concord was larger than any city Elia's ward had seen on Earth. Its ceiling curved so high that clouds drifted beneath it, caught by invisible fields. Light from 3 artificial suns filtered down through crystal arches, painting the gathered crowd in gold and silver colors. Thousands of beings filled the space, tall, short, feathered, scaled, armored, and robed. Every major species of the inner spiral was present. At the center of it all stood one human. Elia's ward did not look impressive to most of them. He was of average height, with short dark hair and a plain military uniform that showed signs of wear. No glowing armor, no ceremonial blade, no genetic enhancements visible to the scanners hidden in the walls. To many watching, he looked like a survivor who had wandered into history by accident. But Elias stood straight, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes steady. He had survived the Valorian War. That alone made him dangerous. Only weeks earlier, the galaxy had believed humanity would be erased. The Valorian Dominion, ancient and proud, had moved against human colonies after a border misunderstanding grew into open conflict. Their fleets were older, larger, and guided by traditions refined over thousands of years. Many species had expected Earth to fall quickly. It did not. Humans fought in ways no one predicted. They adapted faster than simulations could update. They protected civilian ships instead of abandoning them. They charged into impossible situations simply because someone else was in danger. Losses were heavy, but every defeat made them sharper. Elia's ward had been there from the first engagement to the last. He was not the strongest soldier, not the highest-ranking officer. But when the Valorian flagship had been crippled during the final battle, it was Elias who volunteered to cross open space in a damaged shuttle to deliver ceasefire codes directly to the enemy command. He did it knowing the Valorians could have destroyed him with a single shot. They did not. That decision ended the war. Now, according to ancient alliance law, the one who ended a war by personal risk was to be honored publicly. The sound of a ceremonial staff striking the floor echoed across the hall. Silence followed, spreading like a wave. From the elevated throne platform, the Valorian Empress rose. Lady Sarathiel was unlike anything Elias had seen before. She was tall, even by Valorian standards, with pale silver skin that seemed to glow softly under the lights. Her eyes were a deep violet, calm and sharp, and her long hair flowed behind her like liquid starlight. Her presence carried weight, not fear exactly, but certainty. She did not need to raise her voice. When she spoke, the hall listened. "By the ancient laws of the conquered," Sarathiel said, "the war between Valoria and humanity is concluded. Blood has been shed. Honor has been tested. Balance has been restored." Elias felt thousands of eyes on him. He did not bow. He had been told Valorian customs valued honesty over submission. Sarathiel lifted one graceful hand. "You are granted the right of choice," she said, "a reward beyond wealth or territory. A bond that binds allies closer than treaties. You may choose any woman of noble standing within the alliance," Sarathiel said clearly. "She will be offered to you in union should she consent. This choice is yours alone." Humans were still new to interstellar politics, and this custom was older than most star systems. Many believed Elias would choose someone safe, a minor noble, a symbolic match that would bring comfort and protection to his people. Elias did not move right away. His thoughts drifted, briefly, to the war. He remembered the burning of New Carthage Station. He remembered evacuation corridors filled with smoke and crying children. He remembered standing on the bridge of a damaged cruiser, watching Valorian weapons lock on, knowing they could end everything. And he remembered one moment, burned into his memory. A Valorian command signal had cut through the chaos, overriding targeting systems. Orders had been given to stand down. A voice, calm, controlled, and firm, had spoken against her own counsel, Lady Sarathiel. She had stopped the attack, not because she had to, but because she chose to. That choice had saved tens of thousands of human lives. Elias lifted his head. The noise in the hall faded as people realized he was about to speak. "I understand the honor given," Elias said. His voice was steady, carrying farther than he expected. "And I understand the weight of this tradition." "I make my choice freely," he said. The air seemed to tighten. "I choose you," Elias said simply, "Lady Sarathiel." Others whispered urgently to one another. A few looked offended. Guards near the throne stiffened, hands moving closer to ceremonial weapons. No one had ever chosen the Empress. She was above such customs. She offered rewards. She was not meant to be one. Sarathiel did not speak right away. Her eyes searched Elia's face as if expecting arrogance, ambition, or fear. She found none of those things, only calm resolve and something else she could not easily name: respect. The chief counselor stepped forward sharply. "This is unacceptable," he said, voice tense. "The human misunderstands." Before the conquered and the stars themselves. "Do you know what you have done?" "Because humans remember who stands for them when it matters. And because I would rather stand beside someone who saved lives than anyone who gained from the war." Something unreadable passed across her face, surprise perhaps, or something older and deeper. "For centuries," she said, "I have been feared, obeyed, and praised. Never once have I been chosen without motive. Today that has changed. Until then, Elias Ward, you remain under my protection." He had made his choice, not knowing where it would lead, only knowing it was right. Above them, the stars watched silently, and the galaxy began to change. The chambers beneath the Hall of Concord were quiet in a way that felt heavy. The walls were smooth crystal, softly glowing, and the air was cool and clean. Elias Ward walked between two Valorian honor guards, their long strides perfectly matched, their expressions unreadable. He was not a prisoner, but he was not free either. Word of his choice had already spread beyond the hall. Across the Alliance networks, messages traveled faster than light. The human chose the Empress. Some called it bravery. Others called it foolishness. Many called it dangerous. Elias felt none of that noise reach him directly, yet he could sense it in the tension of the guards, in the careful way doors opened before him, in the silence that followed his steps. They led him into a circular chamber with a single table at its center. No weapons. No restraints, only a seat waiting. "You will remain here until summoned," one guard said respectfully. Elias nodded. Understood. He knew what he had done challenged more than tradition. It challenged balance. The Valorian Empire was built on order, on careful distance between ruler and subject, on symbols that never blurred. By choosing Sarathiel, Elias had crossed a line no one else dared approach. He did not regret it. Hours passed, measured only by the slow change in the light along the walls. Elias replayed the war in his thoughts, not the battles but the moments between them. Decisions, voices, silences. Sarathiel's voice had always been calm. Even when her counsel pushed for total victory, even when logic said mercy was weakness, humans had noticed. A soft tone sounded and the chamber doors opened again. This time no guards entered. Lady Sarathiel stepped inside alone. She wore no crown now, no ceremonial armor. Her clothing was simple by Valorian standards, flowing fabric in deep blue tones. Without the throne and the crowd, she seemed less distant, but no less powerful. Elias stood immediately. "You do not need to rise," she said. He remained standing anyway. "I choose to." "Many believe you acted out of ambition," she continued. "Others believe ignorance led you here. You understand that my protection does not mean acceptance. The trials ahead are real. Humans learned long ago that doing the right thing is not always safe." Holographic symbols flared above the central platform as counselors spoke over one another. Some demanded punishment. Some demanded control. Others warned of the consequences of angering humanity after a war barely ended. "This human has disrupted sacred law," one counselor hissed. "If allowed to proceed, others will follow." That is the problem. When a choice challenges the crown, the chooser must be tested, not in combat, not in cunning, but in truth. He had no weapon to sharpen, no speech to practice. The trial was not something he could outthink. That knowledge was strangely calming. When guards arrived again, they escorted him through passages older than recorded history. Carvings lined the walls, showing Valorians standing beside other species, some familiar, some long gone. Alliances formed and broken, empires rising and falling. At the end of the passage stood a tall archway of living crystal. "This is the chamber of truth," a guard said. "Only one may enter." A voice filled the space, neither male nor female. "Human Elias Ward, state your desire." Images appeared around him. Earth, green and blue, cities rebuilt after war. Human fleets growing stronger, standing dominant among the stars. "Power can be yours," the voice said. Elias looked at the images calmly. "I do not want power," he said. The images shifted. "Wealth beyond measure, safety for every human world, a seat among rulers, security is within reach." "I do not choose fear as my guide," Elias replied. The final image formed slowly. Lady Sarathiel stood alone on a darkened balcony, stars behind her, not as an empress but as a solitary figure carrying the weight of countless lives. "This path brings uncertainty," the voice warned. "Loss, conflict, judgment." Elias felt his chest tighten, not from fear but from understanding. "I know," he said softly. "Then why do you walk it?" Elias closed his eyes. "Because someone must choose what is right even when it costs them," he said. "Because alliances built on respect last longer than those built on fear. And because she stood for my people when she did not have to." Above, in the council chamber, the trial sigil burned brighter than it had in centuries. Sarathiel stood apart from her council, hands folded, eyes fixed on the light. For the first time since taking the throne, she was not certain of the outcome. And for the first time, she hoped. The light of the trial sigil did not fade after Elias Ward left the chamber of truth. Instead, it grew steadier, brighter, as if the ancient structure itself was thinking. In the high council chamber, the glow reflected across the faces of the Valorian elders. Some watched in silence. Others shifted uneasily in their seats. The trial of intent was meant to expose lies, ambition, and hidden hunger for control. It was not meant to leave questions behind, yet questions filled the room. "The human did not break," one counselor said quietly. "He did not bend. It makes him unpredictable." Truth alone is not enough. The law requires understanding. The artificial suns had shifted, casting long shadows across a wide stone platform. At its center stood a simple structure, 3 pillars, each carved with symbols of past alliances. Sarathiel was already there. She turned as Elias approached, studying him with a careful, thoughtful expression. He noticed that she seemed more tired than before, though her posture remained strong. "You passed the first trial," she said. "So I've been told," Elias replied. "That does not mean the council is satisfied," she continued. "Some believe you are sincere. Others believe sincerity itself is a weapon. It was created after the last great betrayal. It is meant to show how a choice survives pressure." "Human Elias Ward," he announced, "you will now face the trial of consequence. Your people gain immediate protection. Valoria guarantees defense for 10 generations. The second image shifted to Valorian space. Fleets moved in perfect formation. The voice returned. "Withdraw your claim. The Empress remains untouched by disruption. Stability is preserved." The third image was darker. It showed a divided future. "Human and Valorian forces standing apart, tension high. Persist in your choice. Risk unrest. Risk war." The images froze. Choose, the arbiter said. What outcome do you accept? Finally, at the uncertain future between them. I do not accept choices built on fear, Elias said. The arbiter frowned. That is not an answer. Elias stepped forward slightly, addressing them all. Humans have made that mistake before, he continued. We traded freedom for safety. It never lasted. Someone always decides the cost is worth paying until they are the ones paying it. I did not choose her to gain protection, he said, and I will not withdraw to make others comfortable. Then you accept unrest. The trial accepts, the arbiter said slowly, disbelief clear in his voice. The council chamber erupted in argument. This is reckless. She stepped forward until she stood beside Elias, not above him. For centuries, she said, her voice clear, we believed stability came from distance, from placing rulers beyond reach. It did not prevent misunderstanding. It did not prevent loss. If this unsettles us, she said, perhaps that is because the fault is not in him. There is something you must understand, she said quietly. If this path continues, you will not be protected from consequence. You will stand beside me, not behind me. She found none. Beyond the chamber, messages already spread across the alliance. Observers, diplomats, and spies reported what they had seen. A human had faced the oldest trials of Veloria, and he had not tried to win. He had simply refused to be false. As the suns dipped lower, casting the platform in warm light, Sarathiel made her choice. Prepare the Hall of Concord, she said, at dawn. Rest, she said. Tomorrow the stars will listen. Humanity had not survived by being the strongest. It had survived by standing firm when it mattered. And tomorrow, that lesson would be shared with the galaxy. Dawn over Veloria was not marked by a rising sun, but by a slow shift in light as the artificial stars changed color. Gold faded into soft white, then into clear blue. It was the signal for a new cycle, and today for something more. The Hall of Concord filled again. Representatives from every allied species took their places, whispering in low voices. News of the trials had spread fast. Not all details were known, but enough to unsettle old assumptions. A human had faced Velorian law and stood unchanged. At the center of the hall, Elias Ward stood alone once more. He wore the same simple uniform. No symbols of rank had been added, no decorations. He had refused them when offered. To Elias, this moment was not about display. It was about truth. Across from him, the throne platform stood empty. Then the ceremonial staff struck the floor. Lady Sarathiel entered. She wore the Empress's mantle again, but it was different from before. Less rigid, less distant. Her crown rested lightly upon her head, not as a barrier, but as a symbol carried with care. The hall fell silent. Sarathiel stepped onto the platform and looked out over the assembly. Members of the Concord, she said, her voice calm and clear, you gather expecting tradition. Today, you will hear honesty instead. This human was granted the right of choice, she continued. He did not choose wealth. He did not choose safety. He did not choose influence. Elias Ward was tested by our oldest laws, Sarathiel said. Not for strength, not for obedience, but for intent. He refused comfort gained at another's cost. For this, Sarathiel said, the law recognizes his choice as valid. Gasps echoed as she descended the steps and stopped beside Elias on the same level. I now speak not only as Empress, she said, but as a Velorian. Then hear my answer, she said. The hall felt suddenly too small. I accept, Sarathiel said, not as a reward claimed, not as a ruler above you, but as a partner in alliance bound by choice. Some delegates rose in shock, others stared in open disbelief. A few, very few, nodded thoughtfully. The High Arbiter stepped forward, his voice steady but loud enough for all to hear. By law and witness, he said, this union stands, not of ownership, not of control, but of mutual will. It strengthens the bridge between us. That is not a weakness, she said. That is a foundation. In human space, veterans recognized the look on Elia's face. The look of someone who had done what was right, not what was safe. In alien worlds, ancient assumptions began to crack. After the ceremony, the hall slowly emptied. Conversations sparked everywhere, some hopeful, some fearful, all intense. Elia stood quietly as Sarathiel addressed final formalities. When it was over, they walked together through a side passage overlooking the stars. For a moment, neither spoke. "You understand," Sarathiel said at last, "that some will never accept this." Elias looked out at the stars, so many so far apart yet connected by light. "No," he said. "Humans learned long ago that peace built on fear breaks fast. Peace built on trust takes work, but it lasts. Some will not like what they see." Valorian fleets withdrew from contested borders, not as a retreat but as a statement of confidence. Human diplomats were invited into councils once closed to them. Trade routes opened. Joint rescue missions were planned, not because of force, because of trust. Historians would later argue about the moment everything changed. Some would point to the end of the war, others to the trials, but most would agree it began with a simple answer. When offered everything, a human chose one person and meant it. On a quiet balcony overlooking Valoria's sky, Elias and Sarathiel stood side by side, watching ships move like stars in motion. "The galaxy is watching us," Sarathiel said. "Let them," Elias replied. "We'll give them something better to learn from." For the first time in centuries, an empire did not feel alone. And for the first time since reaching the stars, humanity was not just surviving among giants. It was standing as an equal. The stars burned on unchanged, but the future beneath them was new.